welcome, friends,
to the How To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
and I am Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
Yes, leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
We're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
gentle fellows,
Hello.
Well, hey-de-ho.
how goes things?
You know,
Hey, it's spring.
that's it. That was the whole thing. That was it.
It's spring here in Lovely, Utah. I've got my back door open. So I
had my back door open all day here in Toronto. It's that nice. It's like
Is that a gay thing?
Hey, yeah. It's like 60 degrees here. Incredibly nice, beautiful. Life is returning. The world is alive.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fantastic. I will say, if there are any weird sound issues, dear listeners, on my end, I have just moved into my new apartment here in Canada, which in America, God-fearing, decent folk like us call this a duplex. But here in Toronto, it's called a semi-detached.
Yes.
So there are people living on all six sides of me. And I like the couple upstairs when they are talking or doing it, I could just be sitting on the end of the bed. That's what it sounds like. So
that is sexy and fun, and I like it.
Yeah.
Another audio note is that when we talked to Professor Jim at the end of the show, he is outside, and you may hear a little bit of wind and birds chirping, and it's an idyllic sort of land.
Yeah, it's an Easter gift to you.
Yes, indeed.
We asked him to kill as many of the birds as he could get his hands on.
He killed quite a few. It was
impressive.
It was an impressive cull, but you can't get them all.
It was a good showing for Professor Jim. So what a fun show we have this week. I think we may have a zero body count.
Oh,
do we?
Well, no, because
Jim. Okay, that's
You're wrong.
There is some death that is not mentioned directly at the end of the show. So look, this is a first for us. So just
Take it where you can get it.
And I am going to talk about mostly silverware.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
exactly.
Yeah, this week.
And then I'm gonna kind of echo Mark's theme and talk about the most pointless three-pointed shape in history.
A tricorn hat.
It's half a Star of David, which means it's probably a Jewish conspiracy. but maybe half a Jewish conspiracy.
We'll find a way to make it anything a Jewish conspiracy.
Yeah.
And then we're finally going to talk to somebody with some intelligence. Professor Jim's coming back to talk to us a little bit about conspiracy theories themselves and how to combat them and why they're there, and also to remind us all to get vaccinated.
And he's a fine fellow indeed. So
and a handsome devil at that.
He's a long, tall drink of philosophy. That Jim.
Yes, indeedy.
And we have one announcement to make this week, other than all the others, YouTube, the merch, thing. But we have decided, after almost 4 years, that one call to our voicemail line a year is probably not worth keeping it up. So we are going to discontinue that at the end of the show. So now you know that. So all the people who aren't calling, continue not calling.
Ironically, we decided to do that at the end of the last week's podcast, and we got a voicemail.
Yeah. So that's a pleasingly ironic way to end to bid farewell to the not useful means of contacting us. So contact us through the standard useful means, and that will be fine.
So let us go forth together and make a show.
Cha cha cha. Hey, Uncle Doug.
Heyo.
I don't know if you know this, but I have the power to move things with my mind.
I didn't know that. It seems like something that should have come up before, but okay.
Okay, so I want you to imagine this, because you've actually seen me do it, but you didn't know I was doing it at the time. if I pick any finger on either of my hands, I can just with using my mind, I can make it wiggle. Matter of fact, pretty much all the moving that I do, it is initiated by my mind. So
I thought you were going to say that you take it out of your head and push things around the table with it. So there's like
I take my mind out of my head.
this big brain snail track all over the table, or use it as an oven mitt.
Most of my
That would be the best use for my mind that has ever happened.
most of my movement comes from my brain, except when I'm doing the forbidden dance.
Right.
That all comes from my loins.
That comes from your corazón, the heart. Yeah, and that's why the dance is forbidden, Doug, and we've talked about this. But
Yeah, you definitely can't do that dance within 500 meters of a school. I know that.
not again.
Not since the
That's
last
just
time.
because of Big Charleston.
Do you remember we went on the Cognitive Dissonance podcast and they asked us what the gayest dance was, and I immediately answered the Charleston. It is so gay. I've had a choreographer, a professional choreographer, tell me that to my own face. So
We're going to
There
get
you go.
so many letters.
So, guys, from angry Charlestoners. So, guys, a few weeks back, I did a little segment on the great Nostradamus and the 100% of literally nothing he ever predicted. Remember that? That one.
Yes. And he knew you were going to do it, too.
He so saw that coming. But I started out that segment by talking about he was one of the things my 1970s afternoon television viewing made me think were going to be much, much bigger factors in my adult life. The others being quicksand, chloroform, and a little thing called the Bermuda Triangle. And I think we're going to have a little more on that later. But there was another thing that the countless shows about the paranormal and Johnny Carson's Tonight Show of the late 70s and early 80s had me convinced was a pretty big deal. And that was psychokinesis.
Yes.
Yes. But not just any psychokinesis. No, siree. It was the kind of psychokinesis brought to the American viewing public by the very intense Israeli strange person by the name of Uri Geller.
Yes.
And Uri Geller's patented form of magical psychokinesis, which is the topic of today's segment, was the pointless destruction of flatware known as spoon bending.
Hooray!
Amazing.
So, quick aside to anyone out there who might be the child of a Gen Xer or generally just worried about one of us in some way. Let's talk about 70s television for a second, okay?
I'm generally worried about us in every way.
Totally. So not only was 70s TV positively awash in trash like the saintly Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of series that puked Noah's Ark trutherism and ancient alien rubbish into the world, and shysters like Uri Geller given airtime to bend spoons with his big brain, but literal horrors like H.R. Pufnstuf, Lidsville, Land of the Lost, Electra Woman and Dinah Girl, and Bigfoot and Wild Boy, and even Sigmund and the Sea Monster, television made specifically for children, were beamed into the Gen X brain by perhaps history's greatest monsters, Sid and Marty Krofft, every day. I'm serious, ye millennials and Gen Zers. If you haven't heard of any of that shit, pause the show and do a Google image search for Lidsville or H.R. Pufnstuf. Do it. I'll wait.
You know what's funny about that is if you watch Adult Swim now, which is late night stoner television,
Yeah.
there are cartoons that are specifically made for kids for adults on weed.
Yeah.
And that's great, more power to you. But if you were to show one of those groups of kids in the basement on the couch an episode of H&R Pufnstuf, it would scare the hell out of them.
They would never recover. They would never function in society again. So these were the waking nightmares of Generation X. It's a wonder any of us can even tie our shoes with that level of televised childhood trauma affecting tens of millions of us. It is fucked up. There's actually I found a video. Have you ever seen those videos where they show kids things for the first time? Like,
Oh, yeah.
It's really funny and the kids are cute. And so they were showing kids of 8 to 12 H.R. Pufnstuf and Lidsville and Land of the Lost. And they're just like, what is happening? Yeah. What is this stuff? So anyway, now that I've overshared about another dimension of my childhood trauma, let's get back to the spoons. I don't really want this to become a segment too much about Uri Geller, partly because he is madly litigious and sues everybody for everything, but mostly because he's actually an interesting subject who deserves his very own segment someday. But it's pretty hard to talk about spoon bending without his smiling face popping up like a bad penny again and again. So the other reason I want to talk about spoon bending is because the term spoonbender, which we've used a time or two here on the show, seems to have fallen out of common usage as a term for a huckster or a fraud, specifically of the religious or spiritual kind. And I don't think we should let that happen, listening audience. It's just too delicious and descriptive to let fall from the parlance. So, okay, so for those not familiar, let's get the terms laid out. What is psychokinesis? Well, as I mentioned above, it is something we who grew up in the 70s all thought was going to be a huge job market in our adult lives. Psychokinesis, oftentimes interchangeable or replaced with telekinesis, is the paranormal, quote, ability of someone to influence a physical object without physical contact with that object, which is going to be hilarious in a minute. It comes from a combination of the Greek words for soul and movement. So it's a classic portmanteau. I can only think of Mr. Burns when I see that word for some reason. Portmanteau. There's a whole universe of paranormal parlor tricks that fall under the psycho or telekinesis umbrella. So things like levitation, seeing concealed symbols or objects, like the experiment made famous by Bill Murray, being very cruel in Ghostbusters. Levitation, even the teleportation of objects through space, and of course the bending of metal with the mind. When our friend Uri Geller began appearing on American television in the 70s, society was emerging from the mad, anything goes, sort of spiritual, sexual, and let's be honest, chemical explorations of the 1960s, and trying to make some sense out of that national drug-fueled tantric rumspringa. This was fertile soil for all sorts of spiritualist and supernaturalist claims to take hold of a credulous and slightly hungover America. Remember, this is the moment so many of the cults we talk about sprung to life and gained loads of willing members. And as reflected in the television programming of the time, some pretty outlandish ideas were mainstreamed. So Uri Geller could appear on TV and claim that he had enough cerebral kilowattage to bend metal. And I think it's important that by what Geller kind of really came to prominence in the mid-70s, that's about when the flower children had found their way into kind of the professional, the production level of television.
Right.
And all those seekers that had been tripping their dick off all through the 60s suddenly were suits at networks. So it kind of makes sense that a lot of those people were like, hey, let's get this guy on.
Well, and Geller himself had been, I don't know if you're going to get to this, but he had been studied by guys at Harvard or MIT or something.
Yeah. I'll get to it a little bit at Stanford.
Okay.
And they fell for it.
Everybody was falling for it back. I think people just wanted magic to be real.
Yeah, I think there's something very specific about that time in America. Like the 70s were this very weird time, post-60s, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about it in my segment too. For some reason, there was just all things mystic, all things
were automatically true.
Ancient were just true.
Yeah.
Everybody just wanted magic to be, and that eventually probably that same attitude took a dark turn, and that's what led to the Satanic Panic.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, when we were kids, it was I knew not many things, but I knew for sure that airplanes would refuse to fly over the pyramids. That was a known thing.
Well, the ley lines, they can't cross ley lines.
Exactly.
So the 70s gave us so many art forms that we seem to have lost the taste for these days, guys. Things like macrame, making yarn and dowel god's eyes. Remember those? Using torches to malform glass Pepsi bottles and fill them with layers of colored sand. Key parties,
beautiful.
Smoking while jogging, and naturally spoon bending. So it's possible a younger generation who has not tasted of these other tobacco-tinged delights may not have experienced the art of pointlessly ruining silverware with one's brainwaves. So the bender the bender allows the audience to examine the spoon. That's kind of classic, right? If it's at a house party, for instance, they may physically pass it around. If it's at a stage magic show or on a TV show, they will hold it up to the audience, tap it on a glass or a tabletop to establish its metallic bona fides, say a word or two about the process, then either by themselves or with a volunteer holding the ends, begin to massage the narrowest point between the handle and bowl of the spoon. And as they do, wouldn't you know it, that point begins to bend or deflect visibly, oftentimes until the spoon snaps in two pieces. My God, it's a wonder of the mind. Hats off to you, mighty mentalist. And while people like Geller were telling you this was all a function of his mind, it was rather a function of yours. Well, of the viewers anyway. Any magician worth their salt would know the classic elements of this trick and see them from a mile away. First, a lot can be determined by what happens with the examination of the spoon. If people are allowed to handle it, that makes for a better trick, but doesn't necessarily change how it's accomplished. If the viewer is only shown the spoon, meaning not allowed to touch it, there's kind of a much easier version of the trick. So what happens between the examination and the actual bending is where the magic is. And that is what magicians call the misdirect. In what appears to be a casual moment, the bender will make some comment or a joke, or get up from a chair, or shift their weight in some way. And in that moment, they have just a quick second to pre-bend the spoon. Simple as that. And they can do it with one hand. Then they present it in such a way as to hide the bend. So say if it was in a TV studio, they would show the spoon just kind of flat and frontally to the camera, and then only reveal the bend after some massaging. And spoons can also be pre-scored, meaning sliced really deeply on the backside, or that you can do that thing where you bend and bend and bend metal back and forth until it's almost broken from a phenomenon called metal fatigue. Now, I thought metal fatigue was what happened to me after 2 years of living with a roommate that would get drunk and think he was in Metallica and then sloppily jam along to the CD of Master of Puppets with his untuned electric guitar until 2:30 in the morning. No, that was fatiguing metal, but not actual metal fatigue. And Doug, you know who that was.
I do, unfortunately.
So they can precondition the spoon to be one or two thick motions from snapping, little motions from snapping in half. One version of the trick has the bender pinching the narrow end of the spoon, the narrow bit of the spoon between thumb and forefinger, while working the bowl with the other hand. And then once they're aware that the fatigued or pre-scored spoon has snapped, they pull away their other hand and then slowly release the pressure on the snapped spoon, making it appear to magically melt like a Salvador Dali clock to the gasps of the amazed audience. As magic tricks go, it's damn near one of the simplest ones there is. And what's really ironic is that none of what I described, whether you believe it's just a magic trick or real brain bending, none of that is psychokinesis. Psychokinesis, or PK, is the claim to affect a physical object while making no physical contact with the object.
Right.
They're physically touching the spoon. Hilarious, but I digress. So here's what's kind of nutty, and this is what Dan was alluding to earlier with Stanford, is several universities and institutions tested people claiming to have psychokinetic powers during the spoon-bending heyday of the 70s and 80s. But because, that was a bad time to be a spoon, wasn't it, fellas? But because the people conducting these tests were scientists, they were looking at the issue from a purely clinical perspective. They weren't thinking like magicians. Right. So, remarkably, they were fooled in several cases by the people allegedly possessing PK, including Uri Geller. Another two of the crafty young men who fooled another group of scientists by claiming and then demonstrating psychokinetic powers, then revealed themselves to be in the employ of a merry trickster we've discussed before here on the show, the late, very great, amazing James Randi. I won't go into this part of the story here, but Randi and Geller danced their spite dance together for decades. Yeah. Like, they were enemies for decades. So Dan talked about one of Randi's most amazing takedowns, that of Christian fraud Peter Popov in episode 57. And it turns out Geller was another target of Randi's fraud-exposing ire, including a sort of act of sabotage concocted in collusion between the Amazing Randy and Johnny Carson on the night of August 1st, 1973.
Oh, yeah. Leading to one of television's most awkward moments of all time.
Brutally, and it's long. It's like 24 minutes. A handsome, young, and soft-spoken Geller sits down on the set of The Tonight Show, looking rather surprised by a table of props laid out before him. I didn't know this, but it turns out Carson was an amateur magician himself and was dubious about Geller's pretty outlandish claims. So he contacted Randy and then had a set of objects that Geller commonly used in his appearances procured for the show, but they were prepared exactly to Randy's specifications. For instance,
meaning that Geller couldn't get his hands on them beforehand.
They weren't rigged in the way he needed them to be rigged.
Right.
Right.
So, for instance, Geller used to do this thing where, film canisters, God, there's probably people listening that don't know what a film canister is because there's so many. But you used to buy film, which was this chemical shit that was sensitive to light, and it was a goddamn nightmare to put in your camera.
They're big metal circles.
In a little can, in a little tiny, like a 1/3 scale soda can.
Those little, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Red Bull cut in half.
Yeah.
Teeny thing. And
Also, you could get 24 whole pictures.
Yes.
if you were lucky. So anyway, he had a thing where they'd put out 10 of them, and one of them had water in it, and he couldn't see, right, because they're aluminum. And so he would move this tray around that they were on and be able, with his mind, to determine which one had the water in it, because, of course, they would move differently when he moved the tray around.
Right.
So Randy had the prop guy apply rubber cement to the bottom of the film can, let it dry, and then so it had a little kind of rubber grippy.
Right.
And so, and there also, wasn't on a tray that he could move around. So Geller was just kind of stumped, and the night was just terribly embarrassing. And he tried to bend a spoon with Ricardo Montalban and got a tiny little bend out of it, but nothing impressive. So, and so as I said, you can see this takedown on YouTube. It's super easy to find, and you can also see the whole thing explained in the excellent documentary about The Amazing Randy, An Honest Liar, directed by none other than local boy Tyler Measom, who co-produced and directed Murder Among the Mormons.
Yep.
A show Doug reviewed a couple of episodes back, dealing with the Mark Hoffman bombings. Small world, I suppose. So, since that time, under properly supervised clinical observation, no credible evidence of PK power has ever been proven. No spoons got bent just sitting on a table while a guy stared intently at it while rubbing his temples. Now, if they had, they would have been eligible to collect $1 million of cold hard U.S. cash money from the Amazing Randy's Foundation. Until his recent death, this cash prize to reward real proof of a supernatural or paranormal claim of the ability to defy physics collected dust for decades, as no one, not even Uri Geller, was able or willing to have their claims tested under very strict observed conditions. I must sadly report that all those spoons died in vain, dear uncles. So it seems spoon bending has been returned to the sad silverware drawer of history's dustbin. Sorry, I realize I bent the shit out of those metaphors, but both Randy and Johnny Carson have fled this veil of tears for the great not beyond. But what of the peculiar Uri Geller? Well, he's still out there. I mentioned he is incredibly litigious. He's sued several magicians and illusionists, I guess for revealing his secrets. He's sued the Amazing Randy more than once, and in more than one country. He's sued Pokemon, Timex, the UK Broadcasting Standards Commission, and even IKEA, all for playing with or off of his spoon-bending shtick. IKEA specifically had a line of furniture with silly bent legs they called the Uri line of products.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, and he claims the image of a bent spoon is his and his alone.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And the courts have not always agreed with him.
Yeah, I love that.
I'd love to know why he sued Pokemon.
Because it's kind of convoluted, but they made a character that had a kind of a spoon-looking image on it, and the name was a funky name in Japan, as a Japanese person would pronounce it, kind of came out as Uri Geller. So he sued over that was his like identity, and so Pokemon removed this creature from Pokemonhood.
I love that he sued. I'm guessing that he sued magicians for doing literally exactly what he does, and then saying,
But that's it.
You just look at, I can do all of the things that he does, and I'm using trickery.
Yeah.
What do you think he's doing?
Right, and that's what he would say, well, I'm doing it with actual psychokinesis. They're using trickery.
Right.
And Randy, for years, the amazing Randy would just follow this guy from TV studio to TV studio and say, I am doing this with no magical nothing, and do exactly this. He'd bend a key. He'd bend the spoon. He'd break the spoon in half. Exactly the same thing Geller was doing, and the hosts were heartbroken. Because there was this weird, like, I want to believe this guy's capable of it.
It's so funny.
There's a funny thing, too. Like, when you watch Uri Geller, and you kind of see him, especially when he was younger and doing this a lot, he seems like a great guy. Like, he seems really sweet and nice, and I think people were drawn in by that charm he had, right?
Yeah.
So
I think people were. What's really funny is that I remember wanting this to be real, but I wanted the Force to be real in Star Wars too. But did anyone stop to think this amount of psychokinesis is not useful? Right. Did anyone point out the fact that the ability to bend a spoon does not serve any function or
Well, that's not
I think
exactly
we were all
true.
hoping that it would get bigger than that.
What if you're the?
But it never did.
What if you're the only psychokinetic psychic at a dinner party, and the host goes to lay out the silverware, and they say, "Oh no, the spoon is so bent."
Yeah.
Right. That's like the guy on the plane screaming, "Is there a doctor on board?" This is your moment. You can unbend that.
Except that nobody's talked about unbending.
Oh, maybe he can't unbend. Maybe that's
spoon fixing is a totally different thing.
Spoon straightening.
Well, I mean, it's a good point though that I think, Dan, and with you, everyone thought this was going to get to well, it's spoons now, but wait till I get going.
Right.
Wait till I exercise my telekinetic muscles, and I'm going to open the bank vault.
Yeah, eventually I'm going to be able to pull an X-wing out of the swamp.
I'll tell you what a quote useful claim Geller makes here for his powers, and that is when he's not suing everybody, he's claimed he was a super secret agent for both the Mossad and the CIA.
Of course.
That he had erased hard drives in the possession of the KGB by saying the word erase again and again. And this is a true fact. He actually negotiated the infamous TV interviews with Martin Bashir and Michael Jackson. And in 2009, he purchased a 500 square meter uninhabited island off the coast of Scotland, claiming that Tutankhamun's half-sister had buried treasure there, and that and that he would strengthen the magical power of the island by burying a magic crystal ball that once belonged to Albert Einstein. So,
oh my God.
Hot girl
Awesome.
shit. So that, dear friends, is the magical tale of a whole bunch of nuttery around cutlery. Spoonbending. Let's bring spoonbender back as an adjective. Huh, guys?
Yay!
A couple observations. How much could a 250 square meter island?
A 500 square meter island off the... I don't know. It's maybe a lot.
I don't know. But I just,
Our next Patreon goal is to buy an island, you guys.
He somehow has a lot of money, and I'm not sure how
so
he does.
Weird.
Yeah, he has a lot of money.
And the only other thing I'd say is, Mark, you sent me down a rabbit hole of looking up old 70s TV shows. And is it Chaka? Is Chaka
Yes.
Yes.
Is it me, or does Chaka seem really racist?
Oh, Chaka seems really racist.
I don't know why. He's supposed to be depicting like a caveman or a Neanderthal, but it's like there's something that just doesn't seem right about this.
A cave boy, but he's also kind of in blackface, like brownface at the same time.
It's a little bit weirdly unsettling. I don't know why, but
there's nothing right about that.
I think the key here is the lesson we've learned is don't revisit the 70s for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
And next segment, let's go back to the 70s.
All right, well, let's move on. Hey, Uncle Dan.
Hello.
Ting.
Was that the? Are you trying out for the Boston Philharmonic?
I am, and much like beloved television character brought to life by Martin Short, Ed Grimley, I play the triangle.
God, this is retro Wednesday.
It is so retro Wednesday. Like, yeah, it's amazing. We should be recording this on reel-to-reel tape.
You could buy any listener not born before 1990. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Show ain't for you.
So, I play the triangle not so much because I enjoy that one particular pitch it gives at just the right moment during the symphony, but also because I'm an enthusiast for that shape.
Sure.
I do care for triangles.
I guess I was trying to trilinear. Is that a word?
It is now.
It's a pleasing one.
Yeah, it's a pleasing. Doug, what kind of shape are you enthusiastic about?
Well, I'm not enthusiastic about my shape, which could be described as rhomboidal at this point of quarantine. But,
I'm all the way to a COVID dodecahedron at this point.
Covahedron.
Yeah, I'm a new shape yet to be named.
Yeah.
In the last segment we talked about a whole bunch of things that were big deals back in the past, and when we were kids, just seemed like the biggest deals that have gone the way of the dodo for one reason or another. And amongst that list of things Uncle Mark thought would be bigger parts of his life in the future was the Bermuda Triangle.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
By the way, just so that you know, I'm going to do that skun dun dun every time you say the phrase.
Oh, dude. Okay. Let me go and hunt and kill Bermuda Triangle out of this document. When I was a kid...
or you can just call it the BT, which is how we talk about it around the How to Heretic studio.
Because we're hip like
that.
When I was young, the BT was not a legend or a myth. It was stone cold fact.
Yep.
It was
we all knew that.
Yeah, it was undeniable. There was a region of the ocean that basically gobbled up anybody foolish enough to enter its troubled waters, and for all the
airspace.
Exactly. For all the reasons that Uncle Mark discussed in the last segment, this was a crazy, credulous time.
Yeah.
So I can be forgiven because I was a child, and the world was full of possibilities, even if some of those possibilities were dark and dangerous. There were myriad TV shows, books and magazines and articles about planes, ships, and even whole naval wings disappearing without a trace or suffering some mysterious, inexplicable calamity upon entering the triangle.
Yeah.
And being a child, my grasp of geography wasn't, shall we say, robust. So I assumed that the Bermuda Triangle was some far-flung, rocky, and dark shoal that navigators only entered out of desperation or error.
Some Arctic sea, right?
Yeah, somewhere off in the mysterious east.
Yeah.
At which point their survival rate dropped to 0.
Yeah.
So the truth is, of course, that most, not all, proponents of the Bermuda Triangle claim that it is it exists in one of the busiest waterways in the world.
Yeah.
By nearly every account, the triangle stretches from Miami to either Vieques or San Juan, Puerto Rico, depending on who you're talking to, and then, of course, up to Bermuda and then back to Miami. If you go to Google Earth and draw this triangle, you will see what I'm talking about. Not only is the area a mere 455,000 square miles, or 1.179 million square kilometers for our listeners in the Commonwealth, but it sits at the nexus of all trade going through the Panama Canal and all trade coming from the Mississippi River.
Wow. Right.
And it covers some of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. So this is a busy spot in the world as far as shipping and air traffic. So the volume of fishing vessels, yachts, cargo ships, cruise ships, military vessels, and commercial and military aircraft that traverse the Bermuda Triangle on a daily basis is staggering. The funny thing is, I have given the Bermuda Triangle so little thought over the last several decades that I had long forgotten the size and scale of it. Indeed, as we'll discuss, if you're going to choose a stretch of the ocean to try and turn it into some kind of There Be Dragons death trap, there may be no more self-defeating choice than the Bermuda Triangle. But in any case, for a few years there, based on pop culture at the time, I and many others would double-check each time the family trundled off to Bear Lake or Las Vegas just to be sure we didn't veer into the triangle and vanish off the face of the earth.
That's wise.
Yeah.
You got to be safe.
Exactly. I remember vaguely when I was very young, Uncle Mark, my dad, and one of my other brothers took a vacation to Bermuda itself.
Yeah.
And I was filled with dread that they would return safely.
Yeah,
My worst fears, of course,
that
were
was
realized.
my first airplane ride ever. And my dad, and I was 11, and it was the height of BT fever in America, and I was exhilarated and terrified.
Yeah. And of course, they did return safely, so my worst fears were realized. As we'll talk about, there were a handful of mysterious accidents off the Florida coast in the 1940s, all of them fully explicable, but taken together, it was definitely conspiracy fodder. As early as the 1950s, or actually 1950, articles began to appear in the Miami Herald and Fate magazine, laying out the most popular geography for the triangle and trying to wend some thread through these unrelated incidents and intimate it's something nefarious or evil. More and more articles appeared, trying to include incidents that didn't happen in the actual triangle, but were somehow related to it. So ships
Triangle adjacent, it's terrifying.
Exactly. And ships and planes that passed uneventfully through the triangle but sank later, or ships and planes that were going to pass through the triangle but sank or crashed before they got there, were now included in the growing conspiracy. In 1964, an author for the pulp magazine Argosy was the first to name it when he titled his article "The Deadly Bermuda Triangle."
What year was that?
1964. Here, Dan, you can do it now.
Oh, so do it again.
The Deadly Bermuda Triangle.
Skun dun dun.
Perfect. Pitch perfect. We are professionals. So the name was a hit. In the next decade or so, book after book hit the market. And as far as I can tell, this may be the whole impetus behind the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. Just a few schlocky authors trying to make a buck.
Huh.
Yeah.
There's nothing to this in such a way that, as far as real world consequences go, the legend of the Bermuda Triangle took no purchase in the world. Lloyd's of London, for example, has never advised its ships to avoid the triangle and has never charged higher insurance rates to pass through the triangle. This is true of every shipping company and insurance broker in history. The U.S. Coast Guard has never once issued an advisory to avoid the triangle, except, of course, when there is a hurricane in the area.
I was going to say, I bet there are some moments when that's not a great place to be.
Exactly, and that turns out to happen quite a bit. So this myth never took hold in the maritime community, right? So it just took hold in the minds of...
Which is kind of funny because, I know a little bit... Look, Uncle Mark knows a little bit about sailors, okay? But
seamen.
But it is there are superstitions. It is a kind of a superstitious community.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And even cheekily they kind of play off some of those kind of folk traditions when they're sailing. You cross the international date line for the first time. There's that whole thing they do. So it's kind of funny that this just this never caught on.
Part of it might be the fact that were this some little tiny shoal or reef that could easily be avoided, then maybe it would have found its way into folklore, maritime folklore. If you go to Google Earth, you can't get around this thing, right? It's like when the Suez Canal was just blocked by that ship. Like, you have to go around Africa. To go around this triangle is about the same journey, right? It's just not something you can do.
It's also, not for nothing, it's a gorgeous place to sail and or fly over.
Oh, my God.
You want to do it. It's beautiful. I've done it a few times, and
all three of us have been through the Bermuda Triangle and are here to talk about it. So, yeah. However, and especially if you read the credulous writings of triangle proponents, the incidents that make up the basis of the legend are somewhat eerie. So let's get on to a few of the more famous ones.
Yes.
One of the first incidents attributed to the triangle was when in 1918, a naval cargo ship called the Cyclops went missing, along with all of its 309 souls aboard. It was the largest naval loss of life in peacetime up until that time.
Jesus.
So, leaving aside the fact that where the ship is thought to have sunk is not technically in the triangle, but it's close.
Don't get technical with me.
For a ship of that size to sink and leave no wreckage or no survivors is unusual.
Yeah.
So, but one hint came many years later when the Cyclops' two sister ships both broke apart and sank from the same structural failure that almost certainly the Cyclops had when it was transporting what turned out to be a giant load of some kind of magnesium ore. So that's probably what happened to that. The most famous incident of the entire Bermuda saga was the disappearance of Flight 19. If any of our listeners have any memory of the Bermuda Triangle, they will certainly remember this one. Flight 19 was a training mission consisting of 5 Avenger torpedo bombers that disappeared without a trace on December 5th, 1945.
That's spooky.
Yeah, the 5 planes and the 14 airmen took off from Fort Lauderdale and just never returned. Adding to the mystery, one of the planes searching for the flight crashed itself, killing all 13 crew members. However, it turns out that the reasons that the flight went missing in the first place and that no trace was found may be the same. Everyone was in the wrong place. From the last recorded transmissions from Flight 19, their captain, a guy named Charles Taylor, appears to have significantly miscalculated their position. Thinking they were in the Gulf of Mexico, with Florida to their east, they were actually over the Atlantic, with Florida to their west.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big mistake. But remember, this is all pre-GPS. These guys were navigating visually, and clearly they mistook the islands they were flying over.
Yeah, that's where that old saying, a mistake as big as Florida, comes from.
Boy, I wish that was a phrase that we would say every time you go into the voting booth.
Yeah.
So
Goodbye,
anyway,
Florida listeners.
Oh, they know. They know what they've done.
They know. Out of desperation, after not seeing land for a while, this flight fatefully turned east, thinking they would just fly east until they saw Florida and then figure out where to land. And of course, in reality, this meant they simply turned and flew out over the Atlantic Ocean, out of radio range, until they ran out of gas.
But they didn't have enough gas to fly all the way around the world until they saw Florida again.
Not at the time.
They caught a glimpse of Spain before they went down.
Right.
Yeah.
The search was conducted in the Gulf of Mexico, where the flight was supposed to be, and by the time they figured out what might have actually happened, it was far too late. So even though this explanation for what really happened was part of the Navy's official report mere months after the loss, this was just too tempting an incident to let go, so Flight 19 has been one of, if not the most foundational myths of the Bermuda Triangle. So much so, if you guys remember, in Steven Spielberg's 1977 sci-fi classic Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the 5 Avengers of Flight 19 appear in the Atacama Desert for some reason, and at the end of the film, when the aliens are releasing humans they have been scooping up, the 14 airmen from Flight 19 are seen not having aged a day.
Right.
So, yeah.
There you go.
We'll come back to some pop culture references in a minute.
Oh, sweet.
A couple other notable incidents attributed to the triangle were the disappearance, without a trace, of the Star Tiger and the Star Ariel. These were two, this was in 1948 and 1949 respectively. Both of these were small passenger aircraft. The Tiger was flying from the Azores to Bermuda, and the Ariel was flying from Bermuda to Jamaica. Although odd that these would disappear, remember this was before modern navigation, and both planes were operating at the very limits of their range. So the slightest error in navigation would mean they wouldn't reach their destination.
Yeah.
After both planes were lost, British South American Airways basically just changed their routing protocols, and no further planes were lost. So, and the only other one I'll mention, because there's too many, is the discovery of the Connemara 4. The ship was found adrift in 1955 with the crew missing.
Ew.
The ship had been adrift in the Atlantic while 3 hurricanes tossed it hither and yon, but crewless, it somehow survived the storms. Who or what could have taken the crew?
Well, yeah, Steven Spielberg. What about them?
It did nothing to quell the hysteria about the triangle when the owner of the Connemara came forward to claim the ship, recounting that one of those hurricanes, Hurricane Janet, had dragged the already empty ship off its moorings and blew it out to sea.
Oh.
Ha.
So it's just, yeah, nothing mysterious. There are myriad other incidents attributed to the triangle, far too many to talk about here. But when you sort out the incidents that happened nowhere near the triangle, and those that have either been heavily embellished, which many of them have, or have been made up out of whole cloth by some of the authors of these books, The number of mysterious incidents that have taken place in or very near the triangle are not in the least more numerous than any other swath of busy ocean in the world. So, and it must be restated that nearly all of the mysterious incidents one could generously attribute to the Bermuda Triangle have completely legitimate explanations. So that brings us all to the what. What do proponents of the triangle postulate is the cause of all these incidents? Well, the Bermuda Triangle could be called an ancestor of modern-day QAnon because all are welcome. There is not an idea too bizarre that someone has not tried to toss it into the triangle. So UFOs seem to be the most popular theory. Basically, aliens seem to be taking planes and boats to study our technology and biology. Another popular explanation is that the Bermuda Triangle is the location of the lost continent of Atlantis.
Of course.
Of course. And that disturbances from that lost civilization have caused compass failures and other navigational anomalies, leading to all of these instances.
Well, you got a ley line from there to Lemuria, and that's just going to make all the compasses go wacky.
Exactly. And I remember hearing that the whatever mysterious reason, if it's ley lines or some other thing, the reasons that airliners won't fly over pyramids is the same reason for the Bermuda Triangle, because it was, tons and tons of pyramids, because, ancient. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I did ley lines, I talked about an image from above into the ocean in the Caribbean there.
Yeah, I remember that.
That looked vaguely like a pyramid underwater that everybody then decided was an ancient
bananas
civilization or something like that.
Yep. So whatever the explanation, in the late 70s and early 80s, the Bermuda Triangle was everywhere in pop culture. The aforementioned Close Encounters makes several references to the triangle and the planes, boats, and people that have disappeared in it. The 1980 action flick The Final Countdown, starring Kirk Douglas and Martin Sheen, depicts an American aircraft carrier transported by a mysterious storm back to December 7th, 1941, near Hawaii, giving them the possibility of stopping Pearl Harbor. Although set in the Pacific, the plot makes more than one reference to the Bermuda Triangle, and that these time-bending storms may be the cause of the previous disappearances. There was I know, exactly right.
Everybody's willing to be off by many thousands of miles in this thing.
When you give yourself the margin of error that is basically 90% of the Earth.
Yeah.
Which is why I always thought that Amelia Earhart had gone down in the Bermuda Triangle, and then while you were talking, I looked her up, and she went down in the Pacific. So
in the Pacific, yeah. Well, they think.
Well, I didn't want to go down this road, but there are some authors of books about the Bermuda Triangle that stretch one of the lines all the way to Ireland and the other all the way to Africa. So basically, the Pacific Ocean,
the
Atlantic, the Atlantic Ocean, exactly.
Right.
So
See, here we go again.
Exactly. It's fungible. There was, of course, a 1975 film called Satan's Triangle, which opens with the following unattributed quote, "One of the most terrifying films ever made. Satan's Triangle haunted me for decades." That was written at the time of its release.
It's the movie. Okay. Well, that's proof that there's some kind of time anomaly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, of course, who can forget Rene Cardona Jr.'s 1978 genre-defining classic, The Bermuda Triangle, starring John Huston. This film depicts solar rays, UFOs, compass failures, massive storms, impenetrable fogs, flocks of angry birds, earthquakes, super sharks, and why not, haunted dolls, as all part of the danger of the triangle. The film's tagline is, "Respect its secrets, don't provoke its wrath."
It's wrath. I love that it's a wrathful triangle.
Don't make fun of Happy Fun Ball.
Exactly. Another reference that's going to date us so hard. Fleetwood Mac and Barry Manilow both recorded songs titled The Bermuda Triangle, both terrible. There was a Milton Bradley board game and an Atari video game, both titled Bermuda Triangle. And both Wonder Woman and Scooby-Doo had episodes taking on the triangle. So yeah, it was kind of fucking everywhere. And then somewhere in the late 80s, it just kind of went away.
It disappeared mysteriously, like so many other things. It did. It's true. It was just ubiquitous. And then...
I'll wager some of our younger listeners have never heard of it.
I asked.
Well, there you go. It disappeared into the Trinidad and Tobago octagon. Is what happened.
I asked a friend of mine who's probably about 30 now if he'd heard of it. And he's like, yeah, like planes crash there or something, like planes crash everywhere in the world. I'm like, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, that's basically. So yeah, it occupied a disproportionate amount of my thought, and I think our nation's psyche in the late 70s, and now it's just gone.
Not only did I like know of it, but my sense of it as a kid was that this was just a known thing for like hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Like Columbus probably lost a ship there, and that was the first ship that was lost there.
Well, we didn't understand that people would go on TV and just lie to you.
Right.
Right? Like that TV was
it
like...
was a simpler time.
TV was like, you had to have some authority to be on television, right? There was a board of review that the government looked at. Well, there used to be. But now, we just couldn't understand it. It's like I've told you guys when I was a kid and found out that you could just buy trophies, I was so heartbroken because I thought there was like a government agency that examined the merit. Right, and then they were issued like a gun to a soldier, right?
Yeah,
but we just didn't understand. Like you'd see a guy talking on Leonard Nimoy on In Search Of, and he'd be talking about the Bermuda Triangle, and you're like, well, Spock's not going to lie to me.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and it's the upside is I think it's basically harmless. I don't know that people have died because of the Bermuda Triangle. The theory of the Bermuda Triangle. It certainly actually hasn't killed anyone, so...
I mean, people have crashed or sunk in it, just not because of it.
But, yeah, exactly. You draw if you take the Earth and draw any shape, any 400,000 square mile shape on any part of the globe...
Some shit's gone down in it.
Some shit's gone down in there.
Yeah, exactly. So is it? Are there still believers? Are there still like devotees?
I tried to kind of see how and why it went away like it did, and I really couldn't find. It just seemed to have fallen out of fashion, and there is not a lot of modern, current, a body of work about it right now. It seems it had its moment, and it is gone. Yeah, so there you go.
The Bermuda Triangle.
Just like a plane flying flying around in Bermuda, it's gone now.
That's right. So as long as what we always say here at the show, respect its secrets and don't incur its wrath.
That's right.
So, all right. Well, thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Tune in for Shape Talk again next week.
Oh, boys.
Smello.
Hello.
We this is the part of the show where we talk about how some people love us and then they give us their money, and that's awesome. So let's do that then.
Yeah.
Because we had some folks grace us with their dosh, and I love it. So thanks to Eric, to Angela, to Dr. Zhivago.
Oh.
We're apparently he's a fan.
Still going strong. Good for him.
Yeah, why not? And we have some saints to bestow.
Holy shit.
So, Uncle Doug, I'm going to start you. We'll make you do one for Rachel.
Oh, goodness. Rachel, I was not prepared for this, so I'm sorry.
You're not supposed to be. It's supposed to be an improvised saint. That's how this works.
No, I wasn't in the headspace. I was miles away.
You need to be, Dan, you need to be in contact with your muse.
That's right.
It's true. It's true. So contact your muse, Uncle Doug.
Text your muse.
Who's the saint for again?
Rachel.
Rachel, your saint is Saint Miguel de las Casas Robles de la Vega Enterrada y Deshuesado. The sunburnt.
That's the short version.
Did you say despesado or deshuesado?
Deshuesado. That was for you, Uncle Mark.
No, muchas gracias.
It's the patron saint of a lot of people. This is the patron saint of all non-European waffles. All power converters purchased at Taji Station, and all non-Scandinavian pole vaulters.
Okay,
that's a good one. There's not many, but there's some.
Yeah, there are
they
some.
They need a saint too.
They need a saint more.
Exactly.
If you're not Scandinavian and you're trying to make it over a bar with a pole, you're going to need a saint for that. So Rachel, well done. You deserve that. And then I think it's me that has to give Natalie a saint. So Natalie, and I'm also unprepared, but Natalie, your patron saint, as I consult the spirits who like to tell me who the saints are. Natalie, your patron saint is Saint Bernadette. Bernadette.
I like Bernadette.
You know what? That was it. I tried to make it Bernadette, but the spirits are telling me it was Bernadette. So your patron saint is Saint Bernadette of New Nova Scotia.
Oh yeah.
And Saint Bernadette is the patron saint of oysters.
Oh
on
yeah.
the half shell.
Yeah.
And of lots of fiddle music. We'll do fiddle music.
Yeah.
Because of Nova Scotia. And of rum.
Generally, all sorts of rum.
All the kinds of rum. When you go to Nova Scotia, you'll get it.
Is it a big rum-based?
Yeah. They're
Nova
huge into
Scotia.
rum. Apparently, it's to do with the trade that they had with the Caribbean.
Oh, interesting.
So
I would not. I would think they were more of a whiskey and beer people
yeah. Try and get a whiskey or a beer there. You can't.
in New Scotland, Canada.
They're in New Scotland, Canada. Anyway, all of these people, these wonderful people, went to howtoheretic.com, clicked on the support us thingy. That took them to Patreon. They gave us their money. It's the best thing you can do. It's fabulous when you do it, if you can afford it. And if you can't, what can they do, Mark?
On your deathbed, do you really want to look back and say, I didn't do the one thing I could have done to make the world a better place? I don't think so.
No.
So, yeah, give us money. And if you can't do that, you can fill our sky with stars to guide us back to
Nova Scotia.
Utah. And so anywhere you can. So I think Spotify, can you give 5 stars? We're on Spotify. We're on iTunes. Anywhere you can. Please give us 5 stars. It really helps. And write a nice review.
Yeah.
Write a nice review, and we will sing your praises. We will dance at your wedding and cry at your funeral. And what more could you ask?
Yes, indeed. Let's do the rest of the show.
Chop.
Uncle Mark,
What?
despite our best efforts in this podcast week after week, there are still people who are qualified in the fields they endeavor in that want to talk to us.
I know, it's balderdash.
I can't believe we
Poppycock.
haven't, after what we did to the cartographers last week. I'm surprised anybody wants to talk to us at all. But Uncle Dan has a guest, a returning guest for us.
A
to talk to.
returning champion,
Yes,
as they
indeed.
say in pugilism.
Fellas, one of our returning guests that we had on quite a bit at the beginning of the show has come back to us. Professor Jim, welcome back.
Very good to be back, uncles.
It's been so long. Like, you are like Halley's Comet. You just, every 60 years, whether we need it or not, here you come, inbound with some
I feel like
truth.
Yes, I'm at my best infrequently.
Yes, I feel that.
Can we get me like a Steve Martin 5 times on the show smoking
totally.
jacket?
I think that you probably are, right? You've probably done 5 times.
At least. So devoted listeners will remember Professor Jim as a philosophy professor who has come on and talked to us about all kinds of logical fallacies to look out for in the world. But we're not going to do fallacious talk today. Well, I mean, I probably will, but Jim won't. Today, what we're going to talk about
Is fellatio.
Conspiracies, fellatio conspiracy.
That is also a fallacy. You're right. Jim, one of the things that you have followed for quite a while in your career is conspiracies.
That's true.
And the ways that they sort of permeate through society and how that happens, why that happens. And lately,
Business is good.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because this whole episode, the theme of credulousness has been kind of
Has been strong. Yeah.
So let's talk about, the big one right now. The thing that's happening right now is that half the country seems to think that, there's this global pandemic that is just wrecking populations and has really disrupted the way all of our lives have operated. And the other half seems to think that we're all idiots for believing that that's the case and nothing's going on and there aren't any vaccines. And it's just a bizarro world of completely differing belief systems.
Indeed.
How did this happen?
Yeah.
And it follows pretty, clear political lines, right?
Right.
Which is no coincidence.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So where do you want to take it?
Well, so okay, we talked about the anti-vax movement on an episode a few weeks ago, but this is bigger than just sort of anti-vax.
Mm-hmm.
This is a deep-seated conspiracy that people are following with a religious fervor. You look at any comment section in any local newspaper will talk about anything. We'll publish the word vaccine in any context, and you're going to find people screaming about COVID's not real. The vaccines are, and of course, if it gets really crazy, people are talking about Bill Gates creating the vaccine with a microchip that's going to activate your central nervous system's G5 to make your whatever. How did this happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think a good place to start is just to appreciate the range of those conspiracies that are out there, because it gives you a sense of just how all over the place this is. As you mentioned, Dan, there's the sort of Bill Gates is trying to implant a microchip version, more popular over in Britain, but we got sort of inklings of it over here. Was the 5G cell towers were somehow behind it.
Right.
That was popular towards the beginning. Also there was a viral YouTube video called Plandemic that was circulating a year ago. Yeah, which was all about.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that one. I was going to say, that one. That's all about hydroxychloroquine and
and how the federal government is behind it.
Masks cause disease. Just a disaster.
Yeah. So, I would all of those I would put at sort of the extreme end of, you're doubting the very, nature of the pandemic itself. But even short of that, right? I mean, I think there's lots of reasons that people, are disinclined to, whether it's stay 6 feet apart or, wear a mask or get a vaccine. And it just sort of, stems from a kind of individualism, I'm going to take care of myself. Y'all take care of yourself. This can't be that bad. I'm healthy. It's just a mentality that in most times you can sort of kind of get away with, but in a pandemic, it's devastating.
And that is that it feels like it's a particularly American thing, this sort of Ayn Rand sensibility that like this almost lethal amount of, I'm not a part of society. I am an island unto myself and I can do whatever the fuck I want. And the rest of you it's on you to take care of yourselves. Is that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's lots of variation. You can sort of find versions of it in other countries, and likewise, even within the United States, right? The sort of popularity of that mentality, kind of varies. I think,
right.
Living in the kind of Intermountain West, it's sort of particularly built into the fabric of a kind of libertarian ethos, and so it runs high, in this region.
Yeah. So, in your study of conspiracy theories, you've found that there are sort of threads that permeate all of them. Things, reasons why they catch on, reasons why people latch onto them and hold onto them. What are some of the common threads for just conspiracy theories that apply here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a pandemic is really a sort of worst case scenario for conspiracy theorizing. It's a perfect storm. One of those themes I think you see over and over again is distrust, right? I mean, most conspiracy theories are born in some sense of distrust. And when you look at what people are actually drawn to, when people are sharing, where they're commenting about, about Bill Gates and microchips or David Icke and, 5G towers, the chances that those people really believe that's what's happening, I think, are much lower than the chance that what they really believe is just they don't believe the official government story. And whether we're talking about like the assassination of JFK or what happened on 9/11, distrust is at the heart of it. With the pandemic, what's so, problematic is so much of public health relies on trust, right? When you sort of go into the supermarket, you're trusting that everybody in there, is playing by the rules of the sign outside that says "Don't come in if you have any of these symptoms," right? Or right. You're playing by the sense of if you're going to go to a gathering and everybody says they're going to wear a mask and they're feeling fine, is going to wear a mask and they're feeling fine, and we take a vaccine because we're told that, the companies that have made it, have tested it. The FDA has approved it. It's got this sort of success rate. And so you trust that data, right? And so much of the last year of our lives has ramped up our need to trust others. And so if you're disinclined to trust, right, and people who are drawn to conspiracy theories this is just, it's a breeding ground for all sorts of things to take over to fill the gap that you don't believe.
Well, my question to that would be, you're absolutely right. There's so much trust we place in entities, organizations, people that we'll never see all the time. And we all do it when we drive in a car. The engine's not going to explode. The traffic lights are going to work correctly when we buy food.
When we get on a plane. Yeah,
we get on a plane. With this plane has been rigorously tested. The pilot knows what he or she is doing.
Yep.
When you buy food, that your meat has been processed properly, it's not going to kill you.
Yes. Why
does that trust that we all express, no matter what your conspiracy is, truly stop extending to things like public health or? What is there any rhyme or reason to where these, conspiracy theorists decide to not extend the bubble of their trust and where they do?
Well, I think with a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now, a lot of it's just inconvenience, right? I mean, you sort of trust the plane because you got to get somewhere. You trust the stoplights working because you need to make it to work. Right. I think it is very clear that this pandemic has been, in addition to requiring great amount of trust, it's been extremely disorienting, even for the people who are very well off, right? If you sort of have a reliable income, you didn't lose your job, nobody in your family died, it's still been turned our lives upside down, and I think a lot of people are retaliating against that in any way they can. And so, the thought that sort of Anthony Fauci is going to tell me I need to wear a mask, or that somebody's going to tell me that I need to keep 6 feet apart from somebody else. I think it's kind of people are trying to dig their heels in wherever they feel like they can.
It's so interesting because people are, I think you've hit it. Like, this is taking an emotional toll on all of us. And I get the idea, the sense that you want something or someone to lash out at, and viruses are notoriously bad to yell at.
Right.
You cannot scream. You can't make a virus.
You can't talk to their manager, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've tried.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is interesting, the thinking of this as a lashing out against the situation, or as a way of sort of managing a bad way,
regaining control,
a way of managing feelings and that lack of control. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I do think, one thing to keep in mind here is if you are encountering people that are sort of expressing these inclinations, whether it's on social media or coworkers or loved ones. I think it's worth being attuned to where they're coming from, right? If you've got sort of like crazy Aunt Nancy, right, who sort of is convinced that the JFK assassination was done by, LBJ, and 9/11 was an inside job, and now this one comes along and it's Bill Gates and microchips, you're probably not going to make much headway with her. But I think there is, a wide swath of our fellow, citizens who have their lives have been turned upside down. They've either lost a job or lost a loved one. They are lashing out and looking for someone to blame this on. And those people, I do think you're more likely to be able to find that a kind of a reasonable conversation could make some headway there, because these aren't people who are sort of necessarily inclined to this. They might have just sort of found their way to it because they're at a low spot in their life, as so many people are right now.
Do you have advice for how to talk to those people? For what works in terms of getting through to someone who has been misinformed, who maybe they saw a pandemic, or maybe somebody sent them a link somewhere that looks legitimate enough to them, and they just don't know what is real at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing you want to do is you could start just by saying that you believe in conspiracy theories, right? Because one easy thing to do is sort of fall in the trap of, and these probably, if they're heading in that direction, they might have been sort of written off as a conspiracy theorist. But 9/11 was a conspiracy theory. It was, if even the official version was, right, it was a sort of conspiracy theory successfully borne out by Osama bin Laden, right? The Iran-Contra affair and Reagan was a conspiracy theory. Watergate was a conspiracy theory. All these sort of famous episodes from history start out being called conspiracy theories, and then some investigative journalism typically reveals them to be what they are, right? And oftentimes people win Nobel Prizes or Pulitzer Prizes for doing that sort of reporting. And so if you can sort of say like, yeah, I mean, I get that, I don't always trust the government either. You take that off the table, and then you can just sort of talk about like, okay, who are some reliable sources of information? Do you trust ER docs? Do you trust data from a nonprofit, right? And then you can try to figure out what it is that they do trust, and see what sort of resources are available for having a conversation. Because if you can pull it back from the fringe and just talk about what the kind of facts of public health are, why we trust the people we trust now, public health experts, as opposed to, vets when our cats are sick, or mechanics when our cars aren't working. You can see that, this situation isn't all that unusual. It's just that it's so much more serious because it's life and death.
Right.
Well, do you feel like... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's always been interesting to me that we center all of these discussions just around our own country. Because, okay, let's say that you don't trust the current administration or the last administration. There's countries all over the world that are also dealing with this pandemic, and they've all come to a certain conclusion. Mm-hmm. So you can point to that and just say, fine, if you don't trust this government, let's look at what other governments.
Yeah, look at New Zealand, look at Vietnam, and then look at Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
There's two countries that are enormous success stories,
yes,
and then there's one that is a bigger
total
train
mess.
wreck than we are.
Yeah, that's right. And the things that these successful countries are implementing, and the activities that the unsuccessful countries are implementing, they're the same wherever you go, right? I mean, you sort of either got people that are playing by the public health rules, or you've got people that aren't. You've got a top-down leadership that's taking this seriously, or a top-down leadership that's not.
And here's something that I this is probably what your work all pivots around, Jim, but it's so fascinating to me that I know that there's probably a lot of gray area, but it seems to me that the people that are least trusting of government /science /vaccines, et cetera, tend to be more religious,
mm-hmm.
right? So they are willing to accept kind of incredibly absurd claims about life and existence from from a pastor or a bishop or something like that, yet are comfortable completely rejecting evidence-based, information, which is kind of insane to me. That those are the people demanding to know. Well, I don't know what's in the vaccine. I don't know. Like you can read what's in the vaccine if you're not a chemist or an immunologist. It's not going to make any sense to you. But it's so bizarre that they are willing to accept all of these truth claims with no evidence whatsoever, and all the evidence in the world can't convince them that they should wear a mask.
Yeah. No, I think that's such a great point, Mark. I mean, one thing I'll say is,
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Don't do that. Don't.
Sorry, Doug.
Not a good idea.
I told you guys I was his favorite.
I don't remember what we were talking about. So that's one reason, that lots of public health efforts have tried to bring in, religious, leaders.
Right.
And sports stars, right? Because you are trying to turn to the people that you sort of to co-opt the people that people trust in this effort.
Right.
But I think, to your more specific point, Mark, about the relationship between sort of conspiratorial thinking and religious thinking, they do share, right? In both cases, they give a very neat world order, right? There's a sort of, there's good and there's evil. There are, what happens that is bad happens because powerful people or powerful entities did that to be bad. The way to combat it is to individually sort of take a stand. There's no ambiguity or gray area. It's just about, sort of knowing which side you're on. And so I think conspiracy theories feed that. It's perfect in that way, Doug.
I think that's fascinating because when you think about it from that perspective, all religion is basically conspiracy theory. It's an explanation of the world without evidence.
One of the sort of early articles on sort of thinking about conspiracy theories as a philosophical problem sort of equated them to, like the Roman and Greek gods, where, in the same way that these ancient people, appealed to, why did an earthquake happen or a pandemic happen or, why did my lover leave me? You appeal to this sort of, higher, it was because Zeus felt this way or got in an argument with Athena or, there's these higher levels that, and they're the puppet masters that are bringing about events here on Earth. And conspiracy theory is, it's the same version of that, but instead of Zeus, it's Bill Gates, and instead of Athena, it's, Anthony Fauci.
Interesting.
Right. So, anti-vax has been around for a while.
Sure.
The kind of modern iteration of it's been around for a decade or so, or more. But did you, in kind of watching what's happening now, QAnon is obviously a new phenomenon. But it, like all conspiracy theories, these things just kind of morph into each other.
Totally.
Like it's really hard to find the lines between. They're
very plastic, right?
Yeah. You could never really find the moment where anti-vax ends and QAnon begins. But do you feel like because of that, the prevalence of QAnon and then the administration of Donald Trump, would you, definitely winked and nodded towards all these conspiracies that this is a kind of a new, more dangerous variant of anti-vax, or is it this just kind of the classic anti-vax conspiracy we're dealing with here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's both reasons, Doug, to be sort of profoundly concerned, and also reasons in this particular case to think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So the reasons for concern are, you're right, with the pandemic, again, if you think of conspiracy theories as beginning with distrust, then when you're looking at what draws people to conspiracy theories, it's who do they distrust? And so typically conservative-minded people who distrust the federal government, their conspiracy theories are all about in some way or another, how the federal government is lying to you or misleading you in some way. More liberal-minded folks tend to distrust capitalism, corporations, private industry. And so they're more inclined to distrust, think of things like, anti-GMOs. That's much more common on the left than it is on the right. Anti-vax, typically it has been, it's common on the left in a way that, many conspiracy theories aren't. And usually that's tied to distrust of, Monsanto with GMOs, or tied to Pfizer, or the makers of the vaccines. And so, right, what makes a pandemic so, again, a kind of perfect storm is because, we've got to rely on the public health experts to tell us what to do. That's basically the federal government. And so if you don't trust the federal government, you've got a problem. And at the end of the day, you need to get the vaccine, and that requires relying on big pharma, and some people aren't comfortable doing that. And so I think, QAnon and the anti-vaxxers, it has sort of morphed over the last year because it's just become this kind of catch-all for anything that you distrust, right? I mean, sort of, if QAnon is just, if you distrust the kind of official version out there, whoever it's coming from or whatever it is, QAnon is a safe space to absorb that. I can now tell you the reason we might be optimistic, but I've been talking a while, so I'm also
please. I mean, don't stop before the optimism.
Are we overdue for a little good news?
The fact is that it may be off-brand for us to talk about something that's positive and like why we could be optimistic, but let's do it anyway, for God's sake.
Yeah, Jim, the show's taken a real dark turn in the past year for some reason.
Let's sprinkle a little good news in there. So here's one reason I think we should be optimistic. When you look at a lot of conspiracy theories, ones that we've talked about, like 9/11, JFK assassination, right? Moon landing. In many cases, conspiracy theories, they emerge around sort of one-off historical events, right? Usually something major,
kind of a black swan event. That's just,
something really bad happened, and then your ability to actually sort of probe that in any kind of scientific way is limited, right? I mean, like once 9/11 happened, it happened. And obviously you can go back and, weed through the rubble and piece through, national intelligence information about sort of how the events came about. But it's not like you can, re-simulate it or kind of, try it again. People that were, involved aren't around anymore. And so you are limited in your extent to actually kind of experiment on the thing in question. Right. Whereas with the pandemic that we're all, this sort of slow train wreck that we're all living through, a lot of these claims that the conspiracy theorists are making are testable in real time, so these vaccines are implanting a microchip in all of us. Well, millions of people now have, the vaccine. So
millions of people now have a free microchip. I don't see the downside.
Worst case scenario, you've got a free microchip out of it.
In case I get lost, then they take me to the vet and they can get me back home.
We scanned Mark and found him. But more likely what's going to happen, you can get a full body scan and it's just not going to turn up, right? All these sort of concerns about, the vaccine is going to, brainwash people or, have all these horrific side effects. More and more people are getting vaccinated. More and more people now are vaccinated themselves or know somebody who was vaccinated. And so a lot of the steam just sort of, runs out of it because it becomes clear that these claims didn't hold up to scrutiny, right? I mean, you pin it on 5G cell towers. Well, let's just look at where the 5G cell towers are and where the infections are. And then you quickly realize, it doesn't hold up to any scrutiny. And so I don't think that conspiratorial thinking is going to go away, but I do think, in the not too distant future, we're not going to be talking about microchips and vaccines because it's just going to have proven itself to be a ridiculous idea.
Well, it's really funny that you say that because the segment that is just before this is Uncle Doug did a great piece on the Bermuda Triangle and how, that was the thing.
Sure.
In the 70s, like everybody just is like, yeah, the Bermuda Triangle, that's a thing. And 10 years later, 15 years later, it just was completely gone from the zeitgeist. Like, it's
and not because of anyone's effort. It fell out of fashion and favor and just went away.
Yeah, it didn't have the momentum.
Right.
And I think, what happened? Well, ships keep sailing through there and planes keep flying there, and they turn out just fine. And so it's like, all right, well, maybe there's not so much going on. But obviously, right, the people who were promoting that idea at the time, and the people who, the kind of David Icke of the world, he's a big British conspiracy theorist, or are promoting the Bill Gates microchip idea, it's not like they issue a retraction, right? They don't say, "Oh, sorry about that. We got that one wrong."
They just change the subject.
That's right. They just gravitate to the next thing that they want to focus on distrusting.
Right.
Well, I get. Is the thing just that humans are broken? Are we? Is that what's happening right now? Is that just we're bad? We're so bad at brain that we can't brain? Is that it? It's what it feels like to me.
I mean, in many ways, I think the inclinations that conspiratorial thinking draw out are present in all of us, right? I mean, a sense of distrust, I think a sense of kind of individualism. We all have that. You just have to kind of either, learn how to temper it, figure out ways to absorb information that, challenges you, but that stuff's hard. It doesn't come natural, right? I mean, it's way more easy just to sort of fill your Facebook feed with people who believe what you believe and are going to feed you information that confirms what you already think, and the Facebook feed is designed to do that, to keep you there. Right. So I think it's humans in general. We bump into all sorts of situations where we no longer are very good at reasoning through what's actually happening, and there are ways out of it, but it takes work, and not everybody's sort of up for that.
Yeah, I don't think I find myself in that category. I don't really believe in any conspiracies. I am 100% certain, and I have the facts to show it, that Milli Vanilli was framed. But other than that, like we did talk on the show a few weeks back about how given what it's going to take to get us to herd immunity, not just in our own country or community, but globally, that a lot of these people who kind of reflexively say they're anti-vax, or they don't know enough, or they're dubious about the vaccine at this stage. Some of them are going to have to come over to our side, or we're never going to get to herd immunity. Mm-hmm. So we've got to, unlike a lot of conspiracies, like if someone believes in the, Kennedy was killed by LBJ,
do your thing.
Who cares? Yeah. But this one matters, and we've got to get people onto this side somehow.
Yeah. And I mean, I would hope, right? Yeah. And the other thing that I'll say about what's important about what you're bringing up there, Doug, is it's not like it's just in the general population. It turns out when the vaccines were being rolled out, sort of in phase 1 to healthcare workers, about a quarter of healthcare workers refused it, right? So these are people in the healthcare industry. It's sort of like this is their jam,
and they're vulnerable. They're exposed more than you and I are.
That's why they're phase 1, right? Yeah. And yet they were like, nah, you know what? I'm gonna wait a little bit and see how this goes. And so, I think to Doug's point, like obviously, I don't think you're gonna, if these people are genuinely worried about like microchips, they're not going to come over to our side. But I do think there's probably a sizable portion who are in a kind of like, I don't know about this. They're waiting to see what their friends on social media who have got vaccinated say about it after the fact. They're waiting to see, because it's really only now, right? We're sort of just like a week or so into it rolling out generally. And I'd like to think that as that sort of starts happening, and there's just this kind of, it becomes just, oh, of course you get vaccinated. It's how you return to normal life, or you start to see the things that you can do when you're vaccinated that you can't do when you're not vaccinated. That there's going to be a gradual migration, right? But again, it's not going to be. People aren't going to say, "Oh, I got that whole 5G thing wrong." They're just going to sort of do it quietly and go about their life.
So what you're saying is what we should do is gently sort of we talked about this a little bit in our patrons only conversation, I think, but it is a good idea to like go onto your social media, talk about, normalize the getting of the vaccine, talk about, what happened. I'm so glad I got it, blah, blah, blah. Yep. I'm seeing that all over my feed, but I think it's a good idea to make sure that you go into your Twitters and your
Right.
your you faces and whatever, and make sure that you say that and just put a good spin on it.
Because there could be people, right, for whom they're not encountering that information anywhere but on social media, right? And so it really, there's something about, right, again, public health, you're right, they're turning to church leaders and, LeBron James and, the people that people trust. Lots of people trust, you guys, and believe it or not, and lots of people trust your listeners, right? And so when somebody has that personal connection, right, and you can say, hey, I did this, right? People are going to say, oh, I know Dan, right? Doug said he did it. I wasn't thinking about that, but now maybe it seems totally reasonable. Right. Mark's fingers didn't fall off afterwards, right? So I think there's
not all of them.
That's right. And you can get by with the ones that you've got.
Yeah, 6 is a good number.
So I think there is real value in that, Dan.
I've got even a better idea based on what you're saying, Jim, is I think what we do is we cook up an even more batshit conspiracy theory to give these people cover to move on from anti-vax and into that one. You know what I'm saying?
That.
They just walk away from it. So
because there's bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. So I just think that we say that Stanley Kubrick faked JFK.
Okay.
Entirely as a human being. And then they can just move on to that.
He was a CGI.
He did it from his control center in the Bermuda Triangle.
That's right.
I think it's obvious. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I think
it should provide the cover we need.
And we can get Milli Vanilli to score the entire documentary.
Guys, we've licked this.
I think we got it. Jim, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us about this. We all still have plenty of questions, but we've taken up plenty of your time. So we really appreciate you coming out. This is fun.
It was my pleasure, and I'll see you guys again in 3 to 4 years.
Yes.
Perfect.
Right on schedule.
On your next orbit. All right. Thanks, Jim.
Take it easy, fellas.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's conspiracy-laden show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what your conspiracy theories are at howtoheretic.com.
And as we've said, we are discontinuing the landline because what are we, 600? So now, from now on, I'm going to say, I'm on Twitter at howtoheretic.
Oh my God, it's my turn.
Yeah.
And thanks to our patrons.
We're just so thrown off.
We're so thrown off. And thanks to our special Death Triangle, Cody Layton, for editing the show.
Thanks to all of you, friends, for tuning in.
Bye, friends.
We're going to get this right one day.